Hello and welcome to the Exceleration podcast. This is episode 5. In this episode, we've got this giant table here, right? And we want to look through row by row. What we're looking for is we're looking for rows where all these elements are the same, and we're also looking to find rows where all the elements are different. And we're also going to check to see where all the rows where at least one of them is different, which I think is going to be virtually all of these. Now, if you were trying to do this by hand, it would take an awful long time because there are 4,096 of these, and it would be awfully difficult to eyeball. So we're going to need a formula. And the formula we're going to use is going to exploit that collision array that we looked at in episode 4. So I've made a little chart to demonstrate this useful property that we're going to use here in a second. So if we're going to look for a row where everything is the same, like say this row right here, what we're going to notice is that if we compare the row B6 through E6 with the transposition of itself, we'll get this guy here, where it's going to look at element 1 against element 1, and that's going to be true, then element 1 against element 2, that'll be true, and you'll get trues all the way across. So you'll end up, when you add the whole thing together, when you add up all the elements, you'll end up with 16 trues. And if you'll notice, that is the same number of elements in the line of the row. So however many elements you've got, if you square that, that's how many trues you'll get if all of them are true. Conversely, if we're looking for rows where nothing is the same, what you've got is this case over here. So if we take this guy here and we compare it against the transposition, we'll find that there are going to be matches, because if you compare the first element with itself, A with A, you're going to get a true. And the second element with the second element, you're going to get a true. Third with third, you're going to get a true. Fourth with fourth, you're going to get a true. So in this case, if you take a row with 4 elements in it, and you compare it with itself, if nothing is the same, you're going to be able to sum whatever the number of columns is in the row. So in this case, it's 4. If it were 5, the sum would be 5. Okay, and so that's the information we need to go ahead and get started with this. So let's go over here, and let's start. We're going to say this guy right here. Whoop, whoop, whoop. Does it equal gotta spell it right, transpose of the same exact thing. Okay, so that's okay to start off with. So now we've got our comparison, which is going to give us F9, this guy here. Not that useful. Control Z. Okay, now I'm going to double negate it so we get a bunch of 1s and 0s. 1s wherever there was a true, 0s wherever there was a false. F9. Okay, that's a bit more useful. We can see that there's some 1s in there, as you would expect. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to sum up this right here. Sum that. Let's see, how many do we get? Hit F9 to evaluate it. 74. Okay, so remember, what we're looking for in this calculation is, are all the elements in this row the same? So if all of them were the same, what you would have is you would take sum would equal the number of columns, open parentheses, and you would square that. So there's 24, so you'd end up with 24 squared, which is 576. Okay, so I think we've got everything we need for this formula. Let's do Control-Shift-Enter. Okay, they are not all the same, as you would expect. Now, just to test our formula, I'm going to drag this guy across and see if it works. Okay, good. So if they are all the same, our formula returns the right value. Control-Z. I'm going to do this. Okay, good. Still false. Control-Z. Okay, now I'm going to double-click on this one, and I'm just going to scoop this up. I know I should use F4 to make these absolute references, but I'm going to be lazy because I can. Control-Shift-Enter. Okay, now if they're all different, equals Control-V to paste it. If they're all different, this isn't going to equal 0, it's going to equal the number of columns. So it'll equal F9, 24. Okay, so good. And I'm going to do Control Shift Enter. So if they were all different, no, let's just fake what all different might look like. I'm going to do 1, and this is 2. So if they're all different, okay, there we go. Now we've got a true. Control Z, Control Z, Control Z. Okay, I'm going to double click this guy. I'm going to scoop the formula up again. Control Z, or I'm sorry, Control C to copy. Escape. Double click. Equals. Control V to paste. So if it's at least 1, if they're all different, it's going to equal this value right here. If there's at least one match, it's going to be greater than that value right there. So I'm going to do Control Shift Enter. Okay, there's at least one different, which would make sense. It'd be, I mean, look at all these numbers. It would be kind of unlikely that would not be the case. So let's see. Well, let's test that again, just because we can. So I got 1, 2. Drag this across. Okay, they're not all the same. They're not all different. And there's at least one match? No, there's not at least one match. But what if we did 1, 1? Okay, now there is at least one difference between them. Okay, so I'm going to Control Z to undo my way all around there. Okay, I'm going to highlight these. Double click to send them down. And now I'm going to do Control Asterisk, and I'm going to go up to Data and Filter. And now if I want to, I can only see the ones where they're all the same. I'm going to unclick False. Okay. And there's only 2. So we had, let's see, how many did we have? I believe we had, let's see, we had 4,098 rows, and in a span of less than 10 minutes, we were able to figure out which ones of these were all the same. This would have taken forever to do by hand, but since we used an array formula, we were able to do it very quickly. Okay. Well, I hope that was helpful. I will see you next time.